Do you have the time? Oh yeah.
Do you know why Doom has always been a successful series? Because it's a simple concept. Demons are bad, so kill everything until there are no more demons. But seriously, everything works in Doom because it's a simple concept to understand, and the sophistication is seen in the gameplay, which is again simple to understand but satisfying to master. Unfortunately, over the years, there has been a massive push for games to have a lot of gimmicks, such as skill trees, abilities, quick time events, finisher animations, classes, inventory management, carry weight, regenerating health, cover-based mechanics, procedural generation, and worst of all, stories. Ugh! Now, a lot of those things are objective improvements, but a lot of times it's just annoying because sometimes I want the bliss of simply shooting things. And that's when I found Dusk. Dusk is a tribute to the golden age of shooters, when games like Quake and Doom dominated the market, and Dusk does a great job at understanding what made those games so great. Quick movement, satisfying gunplay, and distinct enemy types, but most importantly, it capitalized on nostalgia. Now, I can start to feel the impatient people move their mice towards the dislike button, so let's get into the actual review, shall we? Dusk does everything it can to look like it was released in late 90s, from launching with the MS-DOS sequence to even having the default resolution being 640 by 480. And you can change how pixelated the image is and toggle nearly every modern or old school feature in the game, so if you really want to feel like you're playing the game like it was released in 1997, then you can. Yet, despite trying as hard as they can to look as shitty as possible, the game still managed to have some truly beautiful moments, especially in Episode 2, and those moments are accompanied by a fantastic sound design. So to summarize, Dusk intentionally has visuals with low details in order to emulate games released in the late 90s, yet it takes advantage of modern development tools to make some great visuals alongside a fantastic soundtrack and sound design.
I really wish it was only me and you. I'm jealous of everybody in the room. Please don't look at me with those eyes.
Kill the intruder.
This opening scene for the game lays down the two rules for the game. 1. No cutscenes, just gameplay. And 2. Everything you need to succeed at the game is within arm's reach as long as you are willing to look for it. What I mean by this is that Dusk doesn't ever hold your hand. You start the game by being thrown into a small room with 3 guys with chainsaws. You can certainly use your scythes to chip away at them, but they do a lot of damage with just one swing, and the risk isn't worth it. So what else can you do? How about trying one of those rocks? No, seriously, just trust me. And that's the beauty of this game, is finding what works best with each situation. You can most certainly use the basic shotgun for the entire game and have varying degrees of success, or you can find out which weapon is the best for each scenario. For instance, the shotgun is the best all-around weapon because it has decent range and can one-shot most of the standard enemies. But then you meet enemies such as the Fork Maiden, who is a very slow-moving enemy with a lot of health that deals a lot of damage whenever it finally decides to attack. And personally, I've found the super shotgun to be the best at dealing with these because I can get in and out and deal a lot of damage before it even starts its attack animations. But then you have the Welder, who much like the Fork Maiden has a lot of health, but it attacks much more frequently and can deal just as much damage, so they have to be taken care of very quickly. But they tend to place themselves too far away and attack too frequently for the super shotgun to be a viable option, so that's where the hunting rifle comes in handy, because it's a long-range rifle that can one-shot a welder. And of course, since it's an old-school shooter, you can expect to have a lot of moments with a lot of enemies bunched together, which is where the machine gun comes in handy, because it has a decent damage output to where it can clear out a mob of enemies rather quickly, and it's the de facto weapon when you pick up the fire rate boost. But then there are the scientists, who are melee enemies who move fast, hit hard, travel in mobs, and have too much health for the machine gun to be the best option, which is where the mortar comes in handy. And of course, there is the Riveter, which is the gun you use when you want everything to be dead yesterday. And I'm sure somebody has found better options for different enemies, but the point is that it really makes you experiment with your weapon combos, because every weapon is available for you, and the game will often give you a weapon and its ammo whenever you need it the most. And my only complaint on the weapon balance is the fact that after you pick up the first shotgun, you will never use the pistols ever again. Maybe I just haven't found their use yet, but they have too low of a damage output and fire rate to be anywhere useful after you get a shotgun. And of course, we can't talk about Dusk without talking about the movement system. And holy shit, you can move fast. Strafe jumping started out as a glitch in Quake, but it quickly became the best feature of the game, as it is a skill-based way to increase your movement speed. And Dusk moves at the movement speed of Quake and says, "That's cute." If you don't know, what I mean by strafe jumping is performing a jump while moving at an angle with your left or right movement keys, and it makes you move incredibly fast. To give you an idea, this is the base movement speed of the game. And this is how fast you move while jumping. And this is how fast you move while strafe jumping. Which takes me back to the idea that everything you need to succeed at the game is right in front of you. You can play the entire game without strafe jumping and you'll do okay, but if you learn how to effectively strafe jump, not only will you be unstoppable, but you'll have much more fun doing so. And of course, there are a few things that are worth being critical of the game for, but at the same time, it's hard to actually be critical of the game, not only because it's an early access game, but because it's being developed by one guy, and this one guy actually listens and improves his game. For instance, the only complaint that people really had about the first episode is that the level design was rather basic, and the game was too easy. Well, in episode 2, he made much more complex levels that still cater to the movement system of the game, and he made the game much harder while still being fair, but that still puts me in a fork in the road when it comes to criticizing the 2 episodes, because the first episode was fantastic, but the second episode is so much better, and it's hard to believe that one person will have enough time to go back to episode 1 and rework it up to the standards of the second episode. But at the same time, it's great seeing something that's already pretty dang good get even better, because it shows that he really cares about this project and he's learning from the feedback the fans leave. But if there is one thing that really bothers me that I hope to see get fixed in episode 3 that was a problem in episode 2, is the dependence of monster closets. For those of you who don't know what a monster closet is, it's basically whenever you pick up an item such as a power-up or armor, it causes a large group of enemies to be spawned right in front of you. Which is fine in its own right, but my issue is that it was used way too often in the second episode, and it can actually lead to some frustrating deaths in higher difficulties. My only guess as to why this came to be is because the few that were used in the first episode were actually pretty dang good. And people told him that they liked it, so he put a lot more in the second episode. It's okay to have a few because it keeps you on your toes whenever you go to pick up an item, but on the other hand, doing it too often makes it redundant and predictable, which is the opposite of what you want with these sort of features. For the third episode, I suggest not only having less of them, but even putting areas where it's so obvious that there's going to be a monster closet, but there isn't one, which will keep the player on edge all of the time. But honestly, the monster closets and the underpowered pistols are my only legitimate complaints. And it's not me going easy on the game due to nostalgia or the fact that it's developed by one person, but those are legitimately my only complaints, which aren't even real complaints, and I think that says a lot about this game. Dusk isn't trying to appeal to investors, or jump on the battle royale market, or have the most advanced graphics or the biggest open world, or even steal your wallet with microtransactions. The only thing that Dusk is trying to do is capture what made games of the late 90s so special. Many games have certainly proclaimed that they have captured that aspect, but in the end they fell because they tried to incorporate too many modern designs into their game. But Dusk has captured this aspect because it understands that back then there's only one thing that made those games special, and that one thing is simplicity.